Thank you, Diane. Thank you, Jewel Tones. That was wonderful. So much fun, so much energy, so alive. Yay. How great we are. Well, my topic today is vulnerability, strength or weakness. And the person that wrote it is me. So I think I know it pretty well, and I'm sharing my platform with the teacher that's going to be teaching our From Whence We Came. So please give a really warm welcome to Reverend Michael Heinley from CLD Center for Spiritual Living. Reverend Michael.
Thank you for the warm and gracious welcome, Dr. Heather. So I always ask when I go to a new Center for Spiritual Living congregation a question to you guys. When you're out in Starbucks, you're telling about the Centers for Spiritual Living, and they say to you, what is it you guys believe anyway? So what do you say? Any? All right, sometimes I hear people stumble. We say it's sort of like Oprah. So I'm going to give you a little help, and the help comes from Dr. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Science of Mind philosophy that we love and we study here. He was asked that question back in 1927. They were going to do the first edition of the they're asking you what you believe because they want to tell you what you should be believing. But so my message to you today is I'm very proud of what we have here. We have a wonderful philosophy that teaches us a mighty, mighty good in how to live our life. We heal lives with our teachings in our communities, and we change the planet. So I wanted to share with you, though, what brought me here. Have you ever been on a experience where there's some path and you don't know, it looks sort of worn, you don't know why you took that path, and then someone says something to you and something clicks that you know your life will be changed forever? Well, that is why I'm talking to you today. It was back in the summer of 1990. I just finished my professional practitioner studies, and back then I finished them in Midland, Texas. And back then there weren't a lot of religious science churches, especially in Texas. So we had to do, when you finish your practitioner studies, you go through what's called an oral panel where a minister and two practitioners interrogate you and make sure you're really ready to be a practitioner. Actually, most practitioners worry about it a lot, and they always pass with flying colors. So we trekked some 1,500 miles to a religious science conference, because what we did then is we had them in conferences, so we had enough ministers and practitioners to panel all the practitioners. So I went some 1,500 miles to this place called Jekyll Island, Georgia. And that's where I took that path. I did pass my practitioner panels, but that wasn't what was really meaningful about that trip. So I attended a seminar given by Reverend Jack Deaton on the life and teachings of Phineas Quimby. And I don't have time to go into Phineas Quimby, but put it simply, he was the most voracious healer that this movement has ever seen. And it was his healing, and he didn't teach. He taught healing by demonstrating healing. And it was because of him that we have this beautiful tradition of mental and physical healing throughout the New Thought movement. So anyway, Reverend Deaton said this to me, said, I beg you, I implore you, I absolutely challenge you, if you really want to understand this grand philosophy that Dr. Holmes put together called the Science of Mind, You have to go study the people that he studied when he was putting this all together. So that did it for me. I immediately bought the Quimby manuscripts, and I pursued that. And so I'm really very proud of what we do here. And what became, and Ernest has always said he's a great synthesizer, but he had some great teachers. And the three that we cover in class are the three giants in the New Thought movement. The first is Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he came before the New Thought people. And he brought, with the Transcendentalist movement, he brought that essence of we can rely from within. And, you know, the best book I've given it away to many, many high school graduates is Self-Reliance. It started there. And he continued to tell us to turn within. We have the answers. And just go from there. The second giant was a man by the name of Judge Thomas Troward. Troward was educated in England, and then in his secular career, he was a judge in India. And through that time, he studied, he was a robust study of the Bible, but since he was in India, he picked up a lot of the Hindu traditions. And he came back, and what he did was he synthesized it. That's why Ernest liked him so much. And put it in a logical method and described our philosophy as it was and how to apply it step by step. He was a very logical man. And Ernest Holmes has said that 25% of my philosophy I get from Judge Troward. But what's more telling, what Ernest said, was that when Ernest was first asked to teach, he was speaking and someone said, you should teach a class. And so he couldn't figure out what to teach his class for a minute. And he said, of course, I'm going to teach a class by Judge Troward on the Edinburgh Lectures of Mental Science. And so this class from whence we came, we will study the exact same material. The material is rich and it is powerful. We have one more giant that we're going to study. This woman was at first a student, then a scholar, and finally, most important, was a teacher. Her name is Emma Curtis Hopkins. She was called the teacher of teachers, and Ernest Holmes was one of her last students. And she taught all of the Emma Curtis Hopkins was instrumental in teaching all the founders of the religions that now comprise the New Thought. So this is a wonderful class. The other thing so wonderful about our teaching is we're a teaching movement, because Ernest really believed that we're all revealers of truth. And for me, when I teach a class, every individual that's in that class brings this wonderful aspect, this unique aspect of the truth and being of God to the class. And that's why I love teaching, and that's why I love teaching this class. Thank you very much.
I met Reverend Michael at the Lifelong Learning Summit, and his passion and enthusiasm for the history of New Thought was so obvious that I had to ask him if he would consider leaving his church. He's actually teaching a course over there at Seal Beach too. So this is because he really loves teaching and he loves this. So very, very thankful. Sign up in the kiosk if you haven't already. You'll be so happy you did. Of course, what he didn't mention is this is one of the compulsory classes for those of you who want practitioner training. So if you've been thinking, oh, I should take a class, this might be the time. In fact, what better time is there than right now? So, vulnerability, strength or weakness. I have a couple of quotes to read to you, and some of them are from Brené Brown. One of them, the one I'd like to start with, is actually from the ordination ceremony of Centers for Spiritual Living. And this is what it says. This is speaking to the minister who's going to be ordained. May you welcome your own vulnerability as the ground where healing and truth join, and may integrity of soul be your first ideal, the source that will guide and bless your ministry. Let me say it again, really important. May you, and I'm saying this to all of us, may you welcome your own vulnerability as the ground where healing and truth join, and may integrity of soul be your first ideal, the source that will guide and bless your ministry. So I think I've already given away the answer. Vulnerability, strength, or weakness, it's a strength. It's a huge strength. And of course, the meaning of vulnerability is capable of being physically or emotionally wounded. So it seems not intuitive that it would also be a strength, because it means that you're capable of being wounded. And as I mentioned last week, what it requires is for us to quit defending our hearts, to have that undefended open-heartedness about our lives. When we see the world as a oneness, when we see all beings as brothers and sisters, as connected in the one, there is absolutely nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing to fear and no one to fear. And it is fear itself that gets in the road. But as I mentioned last week, and what Brené says is that we're taught to be afraid in our culture. We're taught to listen for what is there to fear today. And then the second part of that is, and whose fault is it? Who am I going to blame for this thing that I'm afraid of? And the whole thing about the science of mind is that it's all consciousness unfolding. There is no other way that anything comes to be except through right of consciousness, meaning the sum total of our thoughts and feelings is always demonstrating itself. It's always what our life is what we truly believe, what we think, what we say. Our words become that evidence. I was reading a story recently that I thought was a really good one to share with you with this topic. It was about a boy who, through an accident, I believe, lost his left arm, as a child. And his parents, quite rightly, didn't want him to feel victimized or to feel that he couldn't do, so they put him in judo. And his master, his sensei, taught him one movement, one, which he practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. He kept saying, when am I going to learn other things? And the master would say, this is the movement you need to learn. And practice and practice and practice and practice. Months went by, only one thing that he learned. And finally, there was a tournament coming up, and his sensei said, you should enter into the tournament. Do you think I'm ready? Said the boy. I only know one movement. The master said, yes, you're ready. He went in, and to his surprise, the boy's surprise, he won the first round. And then he won the second round. And they were pretty easy. But then his opponents got better, and he ran the next one. And the next one, he won the whole tournament. And as they were going home, and he was elated and he was puzzled, he said, Sensei, why did I win? And his master said, you won for two reasons. First, you have almost mastered that one move. You have almost mastered that one move. And second, the only opposition to that one move is to grab the person's left arm. So if he only did that one thing, of course he had to win. You know what? His weakness became his strength, right? His weakness became his strength. And if you think about your life, how often that is so, our weakness is really our greatest strength. It's really the thing that sets us free, because it's the place where the light shines through us. Those of you that have had experiences of dis-ease know what I'm talking about. where we've been set free. And some of you have had diseases that were really life challenging, and you survived, you thrived. Here you are, looking happy and healthy and perhaps all dressed in green. But here you are. You didn't allow somebody else's opinion of that disease, disability, or diagnosis to determine what you would be, what you would do, what you would give. And so therefore, that very thing that was a weakness became a strength. Those of you who have lost a relationship or had some sort of disappointment know what I'm talking about. That very thing can be the thing that causes you to thrive. To thrive. So, if your heart is closed, if you're defending, if you're protecting, what you're doing is you're depriving the others in your life of knowing the wholeness of you, of knowing who you really are. So what a great idea for this moment to decide no longer am I going to defend that center of me. I'm going to reveal it. I'm going to stand naked, metaphorically, probably. I'm going to stand naked and allow my real self, my authentic self, to be seen. As I said in the affirmation, it is essential that you be true to you, that you be yourself. No one else can be you. It's already taken by you. But it's essential that you say yes to the things that make you, you. So Ernest says, treatment, affirmative prayer, straightens out consciousness by clear thinking. When the inner consciousness agrees with the truth, then and not until then, a demonstration takes place. Scientifically, go over the thoughts which are wrong and use the power of your word to heal them. So what I talked about last week was how at the human level, all of us, Brené Brown says the only ones that don't have this are the sociopaths that don't have any way to connect with other people. So at the human level, we all have places that we'd like to keep secret, places of shame, places of vulnerability. And yet, what's being called for is for us to own those places, let the light of truth shine in them so that we're set free. So that we're set free. If I think about my own life and the times that I've experienced this, and honestly, I can think about myself, but what's clearer in my mind is where I've seen other people drop their masks and come out fully vulnerable, showing off their real selves, who they really are. When I first started teaching practitioner training, and that was way before I came to this center, one of the greatest demonstrations I had of such a thing was, unbeknownst to either of them, there were 2 women in that class of 6. Imagine how the universe had to conspire to get these 2 women in the same place at the same time where they were willing to share their deepest secret, that both of them had abandoned a child or children and have suffered for years, even though one of them, they both now as older adults, had made friends with that family that they'd left behind. But can you imagine? And here's what happens. This happens every single time. When someone you love, someone you care about and respect, tells you their painful secret, we don't say, oh, you bad person. God will never forgive you for doing such a horrible thing. We say, oh, that sounds like it was so difficult for you. We're compassionate and empathetic. And that's exactly what happened in that class. Both of those women had stayed after class to talk to me privately about the very same thing, the one thing they couldn't forgive themselves for. But when they heard the other person say it, something happened within their own hearts. It melted. Their own judgment of self melted because they could see the goodness in the other person. That's the great thing about having a community to practice with. We see the greatness in each other and lifts us up. And it lifts us up. But part of the whole thing about science of mind, it's not going to do any good for anybody unless you practice it. Unless you practice it. And that doesn't mean just once in a while getting quiet and having affirmative prayer. It means living in that light where you love yourself so much, including all of your past, that you're willing to accept it all and say, yep, it's me. Isn't it great? I'm the only me I could be. Isn't that the greatest thing? What it calls for is for each one of us to be fully participatory in our own lives. Life is not a spectator sport. And number two, you must be present to win. You must be present to yourself to win, to experience this greater good. Brene Brown quotes Theodore Roosevelt, who has this wonderful piece that begins, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly and errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself as in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." So, in order to fully answer that question, vulnerability, success or failure, strength or weakness. Oh, I just changed the whole topic. Strength or weakness. In order to answer it, it's about being willing and able to stand in all that you are. Both the spiritual truth of you, which is magnificent, and the relative facts of you, which might not be so magnificent, but it's all part of your path, part of your path. So I remind you, I live in a friendly universe, which means the universe is for me and there's nothing against me, which means that it's not only safe for me to be me, it is imperative I make welcome my own vulnerability and let the healing take place. So this week, open your heart to those that you love. Be willing to tell all of the truth. You will be so happy that you did. You let someone in a little closer to see the real you. And so it is. We're going to pray. Diane's going to set us up first, and
my soul sings out to you, my God. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, my beloved. My soul sings out to you. Oh, dearest God, you are my heart. You carry me on your wings. You are in me, you know my heart. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, my God. My soul sings out to you. My soul sings out to you, my beloved. My soul sings out to you.
And I'm going to speak this word in the first person. And so just allow any part of it that feels right for you to be yours. Affirm it and confirm it within yourself. And anything that doesn't seem right, trust the universe. It is a friendly place. And only that which is for you will be yours. So knowing that that is true, this is what I know at every fiber of my being. There is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is whole, complete, and perfect, magnificent. That life is first cause to all creation, both visible and invisible. That one that is divine presence, that is closer than breathing, nearer than hands and feet, is always guiding me toward my highest and best good, guiding me to stand tall in the light that I am, to accept in a greater way than ever before the good that is mine. This is what I know. I know that that good includes every aspect of self. That physically, I am the vitality and energy and aliveness of that first cause of all creation that put the stars in place. I am, in fact, stardust. That something sparkly and real and true and vibrant and vital. I am also, in addition to the wholeness that I am the abundance and well-being in every aspect of my life. There's more than enough. I live in an abundant universe. I am enough, and there is enough. And everything that I do flourishes and grows and prospers. And furthermore, I know that that creative expression within me is uniquely mine, that it's good and very good, and I am guided to greater and newer expressions of that sacred self. And I know in the area of connection, of love, I am. I'm available. I'm whole, complete, and perfect. I see myself as worthy of love and being loved and loving. And I see every relationship as being that opportunity. And so I know in every area of life, I am that I am. I am making a difference by being that sacred self, vitally alive and fully conscious. And I'm so very grateful that this is so. I simply release this word to the action of law. The mind of God has it, and so it must become form. Please help me anchor it by saying with me, and so it is.
Thank you so much, Reverend.